order on Monday, May 2nd. It is 6:30 on my watch. We are holding this as a hybrid meeting, both in the Village Hall as well as via Zoom. The Zoom link is at the top of the agenda, and there also is an audio call-in number with an associated meeting ID with that. I think we do have a quorum. The agenda was properly posted, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item 4 is public appearances, public's opportunity to speak. If you are from the public and would like to speak, we ask that you share your name, your address, your municipality, as well as hold your comments to no more than 3 minutes, just in case we have a number of folks who would like to speak. So with that, I'll pause, and anybody here in the hall or on Zoom, please let us know if you want to chat. All right, with that, then we'll move on to discuss and consider our meeting minutes from our regular board meeting held on April 18th. Any questions, comments, edits from board?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the regular village board meeting on April 18th, 2022.
Thank you, David. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Heidi. Any further discussion? Having heard none, then, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. Next, we want to move the agenda around to keep Lisa on her toes. So we're going to start, if the board is okay with this, item 7, new business C, and this is discuss and consider proclamation in support of the International Firefighters on May 4th. Melissa, please.
Is it okay if I go to the stand over there and read it?
Please.
Village of Cottage Grove proclamation in support of International Firefighters Day, May 4th, 2022. Whereas in December 1998, a large wildfire in Linton, Australia, took the lives of 5 firefighters who were bravely working and putting their lives at risk to try to save life and property, as firefighters throughout the world, nation, and our community do every day. And whereas in 1999, a symbol of support and respect for all firefighters was internationally recognized as a red ribbon to represent fire and a blue ribbon to represent water. And these colors are also internationally recognized colors representing emergency service. And whereas May 4th was recognized as the date to internationally recognize our firefighters' service, as it is a feast day of Saint Florian, who is the patron saint of all firefighters and was the first known commander of one firefighting squad in the Roman Empire, who lost his life protecting the same humane ideas which firefighters all over the world share even today. And whereas firefighters in most of the European countries celebrate their day on the 4th of May as a day of fire service, as well as St. Florian's Day, which has been a tradition for more than 150 years in Europe, and whereas the Village of Cottage Grove joins the Cottage Grove Fire Department, National Fallen Firefighters Foundation, and global community in celebration of International Firefighters Day. And now, therefore, be it resolved by the Cottage Grove Village Board of Trustees that May 4th, 2022 be celebrated and designated as International Firefighters Day. And be it further resolved that the Cottage Grove Village Board of Trustees supports and thanks the volunteers of the Cottage Grove Fire Department for their dedication and commitment to our community. And be it finally resolved that a copy of this resolution be presented to all volunteers of the Cottage Grove Fire Department and Chief Nick Archibald in recognition of their dedication, commitment, and support of our community. So moved.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Melissa. Thank you, Sarah. Any further discussion from board members? All those in favor then? Aye. Anybody opposed? Any abstain? Motion carries.
And thank you, Nick, Chief Archibald, for your work. here, which we will have framed for you and given to you at the department, and copies will be provided also. Thank you for all of your service for our community. It means a lot to us, and we're very appreciative of all your work. And Heidi, if you can bring the ribbons over. Heidi was kind enough to make a bunch of these ribbons that we're giving to you, and you can share it with with the other firefighters as well. I don't know if you want to pass them around, but
Thank you. Thank you.
so yeah, I'll be wearing mine on May 4th on Wednesday for sure, and probably other days as well, because it reminds us all of the efforts and work that you do every day for our community. So,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you.
I don't know if you wanted to say anything. Your favorite.
Nothing like putting them on the spot.
Yeah. I just want to thank all the volunteers for their hard work and thank the village for their recognition of that hard work. We appreciate it. So, thank you.
All right. All right. Again, next up, if the board is okay, would be moving 8 to Deer Grove Commission, EMS Commission, a presentation from Chief Lang. Chief has to, thanks guys, has to make himself available to the town meeting as well tonight, so we want to get him up first.
Chief, if it's easier for you, if you want to, feel free to move the microphone to the table if it's easier to sit. Either way, whatever you want to do.
You can just take it, Travis.
Normally, I'd say my voice carries well, but I understand there's an audience to answer, and it might be here as well. It's always great when it works. Okay, so we'll start off tonight with just a very brief overview of the Deer Grove Emergency Medical Services District. We want to take this opportunity to introduce ourselves to the new board members and maybe give an overview that some of the existing board members might have never gotten because we've just never taken this opportunity to present in such a fashion. So Deer Grove EMS began in 1978 as a intermunicipal district with an agreement between the Village of Cottage Grove, Town of Cottage Grove, Village of Deerfield, and Town of Deerfield. At the EMT licensure level and at a 100% volunteer level of service. Very similar to where Cottage Grove Fire is today, where everyone responded from home and they filled a schedule and responded as they were available. I'm going to take the same approach tonight as I do at the EMS commission meetings, and you guys can read just as well as I can read, so I'll take a short pause to read the slide. Plus you all have handouts. So this shows our vision statement and a fine PR event at the Schuster Farm, where we initiated a AED program because of their large congregation of people in fall. Our mission statement showing one of our ambulances and a group of our volunteers. It happens to be the one with glasses on the bottom right of my screen. Is Tom Miles, and he recently retired after 30 years of service. So changes since 1978. Obviously, in a perfect world, everything would stay the same and nothing would evolve or change. So in 2008, the district added contracted services with the town of Pleasant Springs. The town being to the south of the town of Cottage Grove, and we began to cover about the northern half of the township. We still cover that today. In 2012, the town of Deerfield exited from the intergovernmental agreement, and the agreement became a three-community agreement between the town and villages of Cottage Grove, or village and town of Cottage Grove, and the village of Deerfield, exactly the same way it is today. In 2018, contracted services were added back to the town of Deerfield. So our current configuration is the three primary members of the commission being the village of Cottage Grove, town of Cottage Grove, village of Deerfield, and then contracted services to the town of Pleasant Springs and the town of Deerfield. Throughout the years, due to various factors, we've made staffing transitions from 100% volunteer at the beginning to a volunteer program with a stipend. Intermixed with the volunteer and stipend, there was paid part-time to fill in the gaps where the volunteers couldn't provide coverage. As required by our operation plan, we must provide 24/7 coverage. So in order to do that, there was the move to add part-time paid staff. Paid full-time staff was the next transition to make sure that we had the primary coverage. And we also use a paid casual / limited term staffing group to ensure 24/7 coverage. As already mentioned, we began as an EMT basic service, and as the levels of service progressed in the state of Wisconsin, so did Deer Grove EMS. So it went from EMT basic to advanced EMT, which adds in some medications and some ability to start at IVs. I-99 is a level of care between, at the time, what was EMT intermediate and paramedic, to single paramedic, to where we're at today with dual paramedic. So the district as it looks today, with our current IGA running through 2022, is configured with the village of Cottage Grove, town of Cottage Grove, and the village of Deerfield. And as mentioned, the contracted services of town of Deerfield in the northern part of Pleasant Springs. With all that, we cover roughly 100 square miles. Staffing today is a combination department, which means we mix in volunteers, paid, casual paramedics, and full-time paramedics throughout the staffing day. The primary ambulance is staffed by full-time paramedics. Through their compensation package, they're allowed to have vacations and sometimes are sick. So we need to cover those openings with the casual paramedic group. And we also upstaff with the use of the casual paramedic group. The volunteer program is multifaceted to us in that it is not only a development program for those that would like to volunteer. There are very few pure volunteer programs available for the EMT, especially in the area. The exchange for helping them develop is that periodically they give us, as part of their agreement, 24 hours of coverage to hopefully put on a second ambulance as necessary. The second staffing ambulance is generally staffed with 2 paramedics, but we do have the ability, if needed, to staff with 1, which is unique based off of the year we started our paramedic service. Also on our staff is a part-time office / accounts manager. She's invaluable to us. She takes care of all of our administrative functions that a guy like me really doesn't want to take care of. Adding and subtracting sometimes is hard, and she does a really good job of it. So she takes care of all the payroll, makes sure that all of our benefits are in line, accounts receivable, bill paying, and her primary job is as an accountant. So she's kind of the first line of defense to make sure our books stay in line. So the structure of the Deer Grove EMS Commission, again, it's an intergovernmental agreement that has a 10-year term. There are 6 total commissioners on the commission board, 2 appointed from each municipality. We hold yearly elections with the chairperson and the secretary rotating their spots. We hold monthly meetings, third Thursday of each month. They're exciting and fantastic. If anyone would like to join, we would welcome you. At the meetings, we hold business much like you do here at the village board, where we review the financial staff reports and discuss, approve any operational need. How the district is funded has a couple slides down the line, so we'll cover that when we get to it. We operate in the Dane County EMS system, which is a regional system that involves mutual aid, ALS, which is paramedic, closest response, and ALS, intercept, or auto send. So this is an IGA that we've signed into that says not only for the ALS portions of our response, but also our BLS, where we will share resources. So if, for instance, all of Deer Grove's resources are unavailable because they're on other calls for service, we would be able to get the next closest mutual aid partner to respond for us. In return, we're periodically asked to do the same. As a paramedic level service, we provide ALS or paramedic intercept advanced care to our neighbors that are not paramedic and their patients might need that advanced care. A prime example would be someone in cardiac arrest. If they don't have a paramedic on the scene with them, they may request us, or we might be auto sent based off of the dispatch system. We also participate in the mutual aid box alarm system. If you follow any of the scanner pages, you might have heard of that. It's also called MABUS as its acronym. That is almost a nationwide system that utilizes agreements to source units that might be necessary to run a very large-scale incident. Some of this stuff came out as a result of 9/11 and the events that happened there. MABUS actually originated in Illinois, so we're able to utilize their vast knowledge from the state to the south and develop and manage our system really well. This might mean, though, that you've seen that we've responded into Jefferson County for some large incidents. The same would be requested of other counties and other jurisdictions, that they would respond for us if we were to ever have a large-scale event like that. This is the department structure. It shows that we have myself as the chief plus 8 full-time staff members. This is not the most current one. I have to add our newest lieutenant's name in there, who is Lieutenant Devin Anders. So we have myself, Deputy Chief Antonevich, Captain Jeremy McMullen, who happens to also be a volunteer member of our department, and then the 3 remaining lieutenants, Lieutenant Belden, Lieutenant Lasco, and Lieutenant Anders. They each have assigned duties, and as you can see, the full-time group also has some ancillary duties. Station locations. Station 1 is Cottage Grove, so it's 4030 County Road N, or the Cottage Grove Emergency Services Building. Station 2 is co-located with the Deerfield Volunteer Fire Department at 305 North Industrial Park Road. Currently, we own 3 vehicles and a trailer. You see 2 of the vehicles here, Medic 78 and 80, were bought at the same time. They're identical. Again, bought in 2017, hoping that as we progress through our budgets, we keep them on a standard rotation so that we're replacing on a regular interval of about 3 years. Car 79 is a Ford Interceptor. That's a fully stocked paramedic response vehicle. So we can't transport patients into it, but we can bring paramedics to any scene with that vehicle. It has a cardiac monitor and all the drugs and facilities necessary for a paramedic to operate to their scope of care. This is just my ability to be funny. We're waiting for an ambulance. It's somewhere. We have the VIN number, and it's in transport delay, and this is the best photo I could come with it. So we'll have a 3rd ambulance hopefully by June. We hope to deploy and debut it for the Fireman's Festival. That would be grand and glorious. Based off of the news from today, Dodge doesn't know where our ambulance is, so that doesn't speak very well for where our ambulance actually is at. Our pre-hospital level of care. So we're the paramedic level. There is only one level above us, and that's critical care paramedic. The critical care paramedic is primarily a interfacility, hospital-to-hospital transport level of care and scope of practice. So our operation is approved by Wisconsin DHS. Currently in our protocol, we have the ability to administer 48 medications and 44 different advanced level procedures. Our medical control who tells us what we can and can't do, because unlike nurses, we don't work under our own license, we have to work under a doctor's license. The medical direction is provided for us by Madison Emergency Physicians and Dr. Casey Cronenfeld. That's an agreement we have with them, and they provide us with excellent service. Quick snapshot of call volume by year. As you can see, since 2020, we've taken some pretty big steps forward, which we predict that we would have increases in call volume, but last year and the potential for this year are, I think, a little bit bigger than what we had anticipated. With 24% last year and us at that still 24% clip as of the end of March. We also track the number of calls we're unable to respond to. We hope to keep this number as low as possible. Of course, many factors determine calls for service, staff availability, whether we are or aren't able to respond to all of our calls for service. Another graph showing the annual responses by municipalities. And then how, for 2021, the municipality responses broke down by percentage. I thought it was really sweet that not only were the calls at 42%, but so is the population. So they kind of coincide coincidentally. Not sure how that works out. How do we get sent to the scene? Some of you may have heard our request for funding for our radios. We get sent to the scene through Dane County Communications Center and their use of priority medical dispatch. Why this is important to discuss here is that the priority medical dispatch can tell us how we would respond to a scene. So when you look at the priority, it is A through E, or I guess O through E, you'll see on the next slide, with the E, D, and C being the higher priority calls for service, and those we would, for sure, the D's and E's, we would respond with lights and sirens. The C level calls, our staff is given the opportunity to look at the information that's provided to them, and then decide whether that's a high enough priority to respond with lights and sirens. We're working to treat lights and sirens response as a medical intervention and give it to those that are in need of it, rather than blanketly responding with lights and sirens to all calls for service. And here's the Omega, Alpha, and Bravo. So as a general statement, the O's, A's, and B's are non-emergency, no lights and sirens responses based off of the information gathered by the communicator. Our staff also has the same ability. If they see some information and they're like, that sounds kind of funky or fishy, let's respond to this emergency because it doesn't seem like what's going on in the notes correlates with how it was coded. So they're allowed to go either way, decide to respond without the use of lights and sirens or upgrade to lights and sirens based off of their discretion. I guess I got ahead of myself, so we talked about this slide already. So this slide gives a median response time, median being kind of it is the middle number for all of our responses. This is for 2021. Shows that we are, from the time we're notified to the time the unit leaves the building is 2 minutes. En route to arrival at scene, 7:59. Again, you can read those, I'm not gonna read them again. We do have a 90th fractile that response guideline that we're implementing and following. I didn't get into that with this, and I will email that to Matt so he can share it again. 90th fractile kind of we use that as our guideline to say with unit allocation and availability how we would move those around as necessary. Transport mode. So not only do we respond with lights and sirens, we could potentially transport with lights and sirens. Definitively, after we've evaluated a patient, we do use lights and sirens as a care modality. So 90% of the time we're transporting without the use of lights and sirens, and the other 10% would be with, and those would be after we've evaluated the person that we've determined they have a true life-threatening emergency where the risk with driving lights and sirens outweighs, so the benefit of driving with lights and sirens outweighs the risk of potentially getting into a crash while driving. That's the big thing with lights and sirens is that it 3- or 4-fold increases our risk to be involved in a crash while we're driving emergency. Our average call time from page to completion is 1 hour, 17 minutes, 30 seconds, so about an hour and a third. So from the time we get a page to the time we're back and available, it takes our staff, no matter the hospital, they're all about the same distance apart, that length of time to complete a call for service. And that doesn't include their additional tasks of needing to write a patient care report. That's above and beyond. This is just from the time we're paged to the time we're back and available to respond for another call for service. We use a third-party billing agency called LifeQuest Services. We do have a fee schedule that we just updated and charge for services rendered based off of level of care given. The third-party billing service keeps track of all the laws for us and makes sure that we're billing within Medicare, Medicaid, and healthcare, all the legal parameters so that we maintain compliance. Here's the funding. So for 2021, maybe this was supposed to say 2022 because it's this year's budget, I think. But anyway, so total expenses was about 1.6 million. Run revenue plus other revenues to include special events, our training center that we run, and contracted revenue for the townships is roughly 750,000, leaving roughly 870,000 for the 3 municipalities to share amongst them to fully fund our budget. And as you can see here, that's broken up by equalized value. And the percentages for this year can be shown on the screen. Don't know if I took my 10 minutes, but are there any questions? And I guess if there were a lot of questions or any finite questions, we can handle those offline and not at the meeting tonight. Or if anyone had a question that you'd like me to ask in the group now, I'd be happy to.
Any questions from board members? Okay, good. And since you're still sitting there, we can move into the second item. Deer Grove EMS is discuss and consider resolution 2022-04-21 regarding Deer Grove EMS staffing initiative. There was a detailed thing that she put together in our packets for all of us to take a peek at. We might have some questions on this, I don't know.
As a brief summary, this is largely a result of the staffing study that was completed in January and our audit that was just, the preliminary results were provided and approved by the commission. So we discovered that we had the ability, based off of undesignated funds in our fund balance, to be able to start adding staff as recommended by the study this year, so that we could begin to move forward and provide better coverage to all residents of the district this year rather than waiting till next budget cycle. So that's what this request is. Because it was an unbudgeted expense, we not only have to get it and approve it at the EMS commission level, we have to bring it to each of the municipalities and have them approve that expense from the undesignated fund balance.
Could you explain also how many the funds would allow us to hire and what that would mean for coverage specifically out of Station 1?
Sure, absolutely. So the ask is for 2 full-time staff members that we would assign to 24-hour shifts, 2 24-hour shifts at Station 1, so in Cottage Grove. Currently, we have 4 shifts that rotate, 50% in Cottage Grove, 50% in Deerfield. And then we're working to fill the other days with 12-hour coverage by casuals. What this would allow us to do is put an additional staff member in Cottage Grove on the days that we didn't have any full-timers assigned, and then have a definitive date and times for our casual staff to look at and say they can work 24 hours there. Along with our goal would be to cover Cottage Grove Station 1 100%. This year. Half of the extra shift by these 2 full-timers, and then the other half by casual staff. We do have enough hours in this year's budget allocation to make that happen.
And do you think you can find these paramedics out there? I know that in earlier discussions, you raised concern about having 24-hour coverage and finding that talent rather than the current mix of what we have for our full-timers.
We already know we have internal talent that would be willing to work the full-time shift and rotation. The struggle is finding the casual talent, because literally every single department, not only in Dane County, but in Wisconsin, is looking to fill that same role. So you're attempting to, make a cup of lemonade out of paramedics for the whole state out of one lemon.
Yeah.
So, not saying that casual paramedics are lemons by any means, please don't take that wrong. But a question that Matt had posed to me also on Friday would be, how does this work with our 90th fractile guideline? So currently, what the 90th fractile means is that 90% of the time we will actually respond to a call within the guidelines selected. We chose urban, and that 90th fractile is 10 minutes, 59 seconds. Currently, when we respond from Cottage Grove Station to the village of Deerfield, our 90th fractile is 8.44 minutes. I'm not going to do the math to figure out what 0.44 is in seconds, so you guys can do that. Looking at the statistics for this year, out of 181 calls in the village of Cottage Grove, we've had 5 that we would have needed to respond from Deerfield, meaning that automatically we would be within our 90th fractile.
Chief, you said urban, aren't you looking at suburban?
If I said urban, I meant suburban.
Okay. And just, there's not a huge difference, but the studies and the consultants were focused on urban, just a little bit of a different standard, but you could certainly consider Cottage Grove to be, falls under really either. Urban is more of a density, looking at density of population, and we fit urban, but we could also fit a suburban standard, so.
To further answer the question, the urban 90th fractile is 8 minutes, 59 seconds. So 8 minutes, 8.44 minutes is still under that 90th fractile.
And can you remind me the number of minutes, if it were an echo call or a delta, that would life-saving? 12.
Generally, they say our best chance of survival is when we can get to the scene within under 5 minutes. The 90th fractile means that's the high number,
Right,
what the number at 90% is. If we look back at the mean number, median number, that's more in the 5-minute range and puts us in a good place for being able to respond to those high-level emergencies.
So the 90% you're quoting, the number is all calls, right? So you're not, so when you made a reference earlier about lights and sirens, obviously in what Sarah just said, those would be situations where it would fall in a higher rank, and the team would be getting out and putting on those lights and sirens and making the two haste
Correct.
in it.
I think when we compare studies is the EMS study to the fire study. When the fire study looked at their fractile response times, they only looked at structure fires, like confirmed structure fires. So that would be their highest priority of calls. So when we're evaluating our calls, it's literally all of our response types. If we were to simmer our 90th fractile down to those that are, even if we went CDs and E's, our 90th fractile would actually lower.
Yeah. Other questions from board members regarding this?
Can you tell us again where the funds are coming from for this?
So through our budgets each year, we get allocated a certain amount based off of our projected expenses. And based off of either getting grants for certain items, or our ability to actually staff out the specific number of hours, or the fluctuation of medical supplies, that all, at the end of the year, if we have surplus funds, goes into our fund balance. So that's where our funds are coming from, is our undesignated fund balance.
Okay. And every year, does that amount just keep accumulating, or does that get taken into account every budget cycle?
It's difficult to take into account every budget cycle, largely because we don't know exactly what the number going into fund balance is until we get to the actual audit. We're also required to, by our policy, to keep 20 to 25% of the current year's budget in fund balance. So that's why we couldn't say, okay, we have X amount of dollars totally in our fund balance. We, you know, with all the dollars in fund balance, we could hire probably 4 or 6 for the year, but we would then be out of compliance with our accounting standards for fund balance minimum.
So basically, it's like your savings account.
Yeah, our operating cushion,
Yeah.
if you will.
Okay, thank you.
A cushion, but at the same time, it's not sustainable operationally to be using the fund balance year after year for operations. It really should be used for kind of a one-time expenditure with the understanding if you're going to fund something operationally with it, that then you're committing to future budgets of supporting that expenditure, if that makes sense.
And that, to compound on Matt's statement, that's a component of the resolution to say that we're able to fund those 2 positions for this year, but it will enter into our cost to continue budget for 2023.
Chief, I have a question, and maybe this is remedial, I think I heard you say it. These 2 additional full-time heads, are they dedicated to Station 1, or how does that work between the 2 stations? And I'm just trying to read through your
Yeah,
staffing initiative, how this works.
The plan is to assign them to Station 1.
Okay.
And then if, depending upon staffing availability, who's working at the other station, the end goal is to have Station 1 Cottage Grove covered 100% 24/7.
Okay, thank you.
But I think you did caution me when I asked you that at the commission, that it's not a guarantee, that we would have to find the casual call or volunteers to supplement.
Yeah, I think having a 24-hour position available regularly is going to help with that. It becomes difficult to only staff for 12 hours per day. We've done a fairly, or gotten better at doing it of late, but the 24-hour, full 24-hour shift is attractive for the casual group.
And per the study, the urban standards should be able to be met with a 24/7 coverage and from the Cottage Grove station for response times in Cottage Grove. Should be able to meet that 90% urban standard.
And then Chief, just to clarify, this is a step towards really the district having the appropriate staff level for both the study and for what you have presented, both this board and the commission in the past. So you'll be looking to step a few more full-timers in the future, again, to make sure we have paramedics at the ready to respond to whether it's in wherever location it is, correct?
Yes, sir. Yeah, this would be what I would consider the first step in that direction.
Yep.
So the study recommended hiring 4 full-timers immediately. Of course, I waved the magic wand and the pot of gold didn't appear. So this is how we're going to go about doing that. And then when budget time comes around in fall, we'll look at other options and have discussions with the boards through our commission members on what level of commitment they can make to add to it for next year.
Correct.
Whether that maybe could be 2 more at the start of the year, maybe could be 2 more at mid-year like we're doing now, or maybe it wouldn't be any of those options and we'll have to wait till 2024. Optimism would say we'd like to, 2 per year until we're at full complement in 4 years.
Yeah.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the resolution 2022-04-21 regarding Deer Grove EMS staffing initiative.
Can I Thank you, David. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Sarah. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I had a question as far as how does this impact the contract then that's up for renewal at the end of the year, right?
The intergovernmental agreement,
Yeah,
I don't know that it affects it directly at all. We're just providing extra staff. Those are discussions we'll have as it goes, and Rick was gonna maybe say something.
Really, it wouldn't have any effect on the agreement. It's really the only way the agreement comes into play is just the funding formula moving forward.
okay, thank you.
And where I thought you were gonna go with the question would be the other two contracts we have. I think eventually saying that we have a full-time paramedic at each, paramedic ambulance at each station makes it much more attractive to those other communities that are in contract with us to maintain that contract. Along with through our IGA process, to maybe put the cart before the horse a little bit. I suspect there'll be a better formula we'll have for that moving forward as well.
All right, we have a motion and a second if there's no further discussion. All those in favor then? Aye. Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. Thanks, Chief. We got you over there on time. No speeding though, please.
Oh, they're gonna talk about ATVs and UTVs. That's gonna be, I'll have a little bit of time.
Okay,
But thank you all.
yeah. All right, now we're gonna jump back in the agenda, and Lisa will keep me honest here, to unfinished business. First is discuss and consider a bid award for Main Street, that's County N, urbanization and bike path construction. Josh, you're here in person, and you're wearing a tie, as always.
I'm always wearing a tie.
What do you have to say?
Everybody in person. Yeah, we've received 2 bids back. The first one is County Trunk Highway N. And in your packet, you probably saw the bid tabulation. There was 3 bidders. Sorry, there was 4 bidders on this one. The wrong one. L was the low bid, followed by Hamburg, Wolf Paving, and then RG Houston. It was a relatively close bid between the low and the second, only about $7,000 in difference, I think, there, which is pretty close for that amount of money. As far as the budget for this project, and what we budgeted initially was $1,250,000. And out of all the projects we knew going into Public Works, that we were gonna expand this one a little bit more since we budgeted for it. Instead of just urbanizing it and putting curbs along the side of the road and keeping the width that's there today, we decided as we were looking at it at Public Works, that it really needed to be expanded for future. So if we're gonna go through the effort of urbanizing it and spending the funds to urbanize it, it made sense to widen it at the same time. Maybe not mark it as a 4-lane as you're heading south, but the ability from Limestone down to School Road, that it could be transferred into that someday in the future. So it went a little bit above and extended of the budget. When you added engineering costs and the soil costs in for borings were about $170,000 over what was estimated. But what you'll find out in the next one, we're about $190,000 under. So it kind of washed itself out, and we knew that going into Public Works, and that's why Public Works decided to kind of move forward with this design. Is there any questions?
Any questions for Josh on this one?
This is for the County Highway N.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep, this is N, and that also includes the bike path that goes all the way.
For,
And the beacon and everything too?
sure, for the County Highway N, I just need to ask, because of last year, no road closures?
Yeah, that is a great question. So no road closures, but I did, at the end of, right before we bid it, I said, hey, let's add an alternative in there. And you will see an alternative at the end. And what that allows them to do is that allows them to close the road for a day, maybe 2, to put a surface asphalt course on. I just wanted to see what the cost difference would be. You'd get a better product that way, so they would put down all the asphalt's lit, in this case will be laid in 2 layers. So you'll have a binder layer at the bottom. They'll be driving on that as they construct it. They have to build this in halves because we're gonna maintain traffic, right? So they'll build 1 half, and instead of putting the surface layer on it, they could leave it as the binder. People could drive on it, they could build the other half, And then at the end, you could close it for a couple days, reroute traffic kind of through Commerce Park, and let them surface it all at once for a cleaner project. I wanted to know what the cost difference of that would be, because they'd have to set up a detour route. And it's only $2,000, so there really isn't a big cost difference, and we don't really need to decide that here today. You guys could kind of think about that a little bit, and it could be implemented later if that's what we wanted to do.
And you say a better product, will the road last longer then?
I think you'll have better joints, so like you won't build one side and have surface, and then
Yeah.
there's a cold joint there, and you'll put the other side up, so you're gonna probably get a nice long crack down the center of it that you'll have to maintain. Some of the other cold joints are where they start and stop, because they will be building in halves. You'll have a little more maintenance. Would it be an overall less superior product? No, but it would be a better product if it was all laid hot at one time, so warm altogether. You'd have less maintenance, it would hold up a little bit better, yeah.
And that's as everybody knows, that's a heavily used road,
Yeah, it is.
so something to think about.
Yeah, it's something to think about and not necessarily, needs to be decided on.
Has Public Works discussed this yet? That
They have,
option?
they have not discussed that option
Okay.
yet, so it probably is good to go back there and have that
Yeah.
conversation too.
Okay. Any other questions?
I was wondering, once it's awarded, what's the timeline to start construction?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, once it's awarded, we'll go through the contract prep, we'll send contracts out, they'll have to get their insurance and everything else in order. Probably as soon as they could start, I would guess, if they're really, really on top of things, maybe late month, likely more early June, as part of the project. And they'll go continuously through it until they're done. I'm forgetting the time frame at the end of this, I think it's September. At some point is where we put the end date for it. It should go pretty quick, there's not a lot of underground utilities as part of it, there's just some storm sewer, but there will be a little bit of a raising of the road right around the two town parcels there. It kind of cuts through the bank, the bank on either side, and we're gonna actually bring the road up a little bit in that section to make the storm sewer work a little bit better and blend into the properties around it a little bit more at the same time.
I had one last question. Has Cottage done any work in the village before?
It's a question for probably JJ.
They've been a sub on a lot of projects.
Have they?
Never been the, yep, they're typically Houston sub for concrete work, so they've done a lot.
Okay, thanks.
I personally have had them in other communities as the prime. Yep, in the past.
I will make a motion to approve, Cottage to do the Main Street, County Highway and Urbanization and Bike Path Construction Project.
Second.
All right, thanks, Melissa. Thanks, David. Any other discussion? Having heard none then, all those in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. I'm going to throw another curveball at the board. I see Kristen's over here patiently waiting, and I know you only have a little item, which is very exciting, and I apologize, I should have grabbed you as well. So this is item 7A, and it's discuss and consider a block party application for Drumlin Reserve. Does anybody have any concerns about that, rather than have her sit through, 3 or 4 more items? All right. I don't know if you want to speak or anything, but I mean, it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, it's multiple days though.
Right. So we're looking at essentially almost every other week, starting in early June, all the way into a nice fall, October 6th date up by Drumlin Reserve. This is the farmer's market back for a good tour on Thursdays, 3:30 to 6. Got it? Any questions or comments regarding this?
I'll move to approve the block party application for Drumlin Reserve.
Is it, thank you. Thanks, Melissa. Thanks, Sarah. Any further discussion then? Having heard none then, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. Apologize again. I should have. All right. And then with that, we'll go back to Item 6B, which is to discuss and consider a bid award for the 2022 street improvements East Taylor Ridge Road, as well as West Oak Street. And again, Josh.
Yeah, we grouped all of these together in conversation with the Public Works Committee and JJ. We thought, you get a pretty good cost if you were to group some of these similar streets with some of the same work together. So we're calling it 22 street improvements. It involves Taylor, Ridge, and Oak Street, West Oak Street. The overall total budget of that going into combining those was around $2,115,000 if I added that correctly. And with the low bid that we received, with our engineering costs, the soil costs, we're at like 1.9. It's about 190,000 under that overall budget. You'll notice there's a base bid for this work, and then there's also bid alternative 1 and 2. That's for the Wheeldon Bridge Road work that also JJ wanted to include as part of this. He had a kind of a separate budget for that, and also some local road improvement project dollars that the village received, $30,000 or so funding for that item. So you can see the bids on this one, again, were very, very close. This might be the closest I've seen it for a $1.5 million project. If you were to do the base bid and the bid alternative 2, they're within $682. And if you look at the bid items, none of them match up, like as far as like the cost. It's not like they all put the same cost, so it's crazy that they're that close. We did verify that no matter what you do, if you select the base bid plus the first alternative, or the base bid plus a second alternative, regardless, Hamburg Contractors is the lowest as part of that. So no matter which way you select here, Hamburg would be the low bid. So the 1.56 is for the street stuff, and then there's 2 alternatives there. The first one is an overlay. So that would be taking Wheeldon Bridge, we would be milling off 2 inches. So if there's 4 inches of asphalt there now, we'd mill off 2, and we put 2 inches of asphalt back. The other one's a full pulverization, where we come up, we grind up all 4 inches, they regrade it, and then they put another 4 inches back on. Haul some of it away that they don't need. They reshape it so you get a little bit better of a crown sometimes on the roadway too. And we did include some bid items in there for undercutting and base course if we hit some soft spots. So there's about $35,000 extra in that second bid item that if we don't hit the soft spots, we wouldn't even use as part of the bid. I always like to build that in because it gives yourself a safety net. And when you're out there and you see some issues, you don't have to worry about a change order that you didn't budget or go bond for as part of the project.
Josh, I read this originally in our packet, and I thought it made sense, and then I looked at it closer as you were explaining it, and now I'm even more confused.
Yeah.
So you have there's the initial table, then there's bid alternative number 1 and bid alternative 2. I guess help me understand what's the choose your own adventure here? Is it I have to do the base bid plus an alternative, or I can just do
So you always have
I'm
to
just
do
struggling here.
that's good. That's a great question. You always have to do the base bid as part of it.
Okay.
You can't just pick an alternative and go with that. So the
Okay.
base
That's
bid.
what I thought.
Yep,
I just
yep,
make sure.
base bid, you could just pick the base bid,
Okay.
and then you could do a base bid plus 1. In this case, base bid plus 2. You wouldn't do 1 and 2. You wouldn't do all 3 because you'd only need 1 of the 2.
So you have to do alternative number 1 or number 2?
You
Or
could,
can just stop?
you could stop at just the base bid.
So then, can you help me understand why and I think you just explained it, and I was
Yep.
listening.
Yep.
But I'm not a construction guy, right? So I'm trying to understand here, right? So I get we have to do the base bid. Walk me through the pros and cons for number 1 and number 2, and then give me a recommendation for 1 or 2.
So the reason we did 1 or 2 is JJ had a finite budget. With the grant funds that he got, it's probably right around $160,000. He didn't know how much you could do. So the first thing is, well, let's just take off 2 inches of asphalt, leave the other 2 inches there, repave it. What's the con to that? Well, if that's cracked, it's likely cracked all the way through. So you repave it with 2 inches, it lasts for a while, but that older crack will reflect through at some point. So the life on that asphalt isn't like brand new. You only get so much life. You start to see cracking again, and then you have to maintain it. The second one is a full asphalt removal, basically, and replacement. Definitely a superior product. Just wanted to see what the numbers would come in. how much, maybe more than what was potentially budgeted for that item, the cost. So it gives the village the opportunity to kind of pick and choose and not just put something in there and then go, oh, that was a lot more than we thought it was gonna be, or, man, we could have afforded more, I wish we would have went with kind of the full replacement. So definitely, looking at the cost, I would say you're gonna get a lot more life for the second bid alternative. You know, you're gonna get your 20 years of good asphalt pavement life out of it, where on the first one, depending on how much cracking is there and how much is gonna reflect through, you might, after 5 years, already go, oh, you know, we're starting to get cracking again. We gotta start to put more money back into it for maintenance and other things on top of that.
I guess, last question, I promise. So there's a big difference between Taylor and West Oak when I think of options 1 versus 2.
Okay, let me clarify. This has nothing to do with those two options. This is just for Wheeldon Bridge Road. The other two are full asphalt pulverized replacement projects.
So the base does not include Wheeled Bridge.
You got it. I'm sorry if I wasn't clear.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah. Just the base bid is
The
just
light
for
bulb
that.
just went
Yeah,
way up.
it's just for that second kind of Wheeldon
Okay.
Bridge asphalt project. The base bid includes West Oak, Taylor and Ridge. And the asphalt is fully coming out of all of those
Okay.
options.
Okay.
New asphalt, 100% all the way through to the base. Even the base course on West Oak will be removed, so you'll get a full new base course. And the first part of Taylor, where we're replacing the water main, will be full removal of base, because we're already digging a lot of that up. The rest of it will be pulverized, full asphalt pulverized in place of 4-inch bed. That's part of the base bid. That's already part of what you budgeted. That's the stuff that's under on this side in the budget of 190,000. It kind of makes up that end cost. It's kind of a wash between the two projects.
Okay, here's the million-dollar question. We've got a lot of streets getting torn up this summer. Are we thinking about any type of coordination on, you know, because a lot of them are east-west too,
Mhm.
except for Main Street.
Yep.
We know that Clark is going to be after Fireman's.
Yep.
If we can, and again, we're at the mercy a little bit of contractors too, but if we can get some of them done so that people have alternatives when we're ripping out another one, especially if we have to do a detour or whatever else, which the detour wouldn't, Main Street wouldn't impact nothing there. But is that something that you're thinking about? Because it does give me a little angst.
Yeah, it was, we put in this 2022 project that, as far as Taylor and Ridge, they couldn't just remove a bunch of pavement and then start working on the water main. They had to leave all the pavement there all the way out on the township road. They can't mill or pulverize any of that until they're ready to like pave on top of it.
Right.
So there is some constraints in there, like they may start a project, but there should still be a lot of pavement sitting out there for, you know, drivability and for people to use as part of that. The hard part with this is you got great bids, but you also have 3 different contractors now, instead of having like one contractor or 2 that you can kind of coordinate some of the work with. Like, can you do this first and do this next? We didn't constrain a lot of dates on some of it because that would drive up the prices on
Right.
2 at the same time. So we'll have to, once these are awarded, work with schedules with some of the contractors to try to figure out when we can not have all of this occur at one time. I agree, John, and it's something we'll have to work out with the contractor.
And it would be good if, for instance, I'm thinking like Wheel Bridge, if we can get that done before we start ripping up Clark, because that will probably
Yep.
scoot through for some
Yep.
folks with that one. And we already know when Clark is going to happen, so,
Yep.
you know, that would be one I would think.
Sure.
And obviously, Main Street's just, that's good luck.
Yep.
I mean, as far as traffic, it's constant. I
It's
mean,
constant. We're gonna kind of want them to get in and get out as fast as they
Yeah.
can up there, right, as part of that one. Yeah.
okay,
Last question. The entire length of Well Bridge,
no,
or just a section of it?
To Bonnie.
JJ, remind me.
To Bonnie.
on that one.
That was gonna be
The bid alternates just the remaining portion, so Bonnie
Right.
Road to Maine, that
Yep.
hasn't been done in some fashion in the last few years.
The one that's pothole laden.
Yep.
yes.
Got it.
Right.
Yep,
Right, so if there's potholes, you know, kind of thing, that gets back to like, you can overlay it by a couple inches, but some of those areas, we'd want to address even a little bit more in those really, really bad areas.
Yeah, that's
if you go with alternative one.
You should have said, David, you want option two. That's all you had to say.
I would go with option two. Here's another thing to think about as part of all of this, is Clark and Grove came in about $1 million under budget as far as this overall arching of all the public works stuff that's going on. You still have quite a bit of what you thought you were gonna have under, even with, when you bring Clark and Grove into the mix as part of overall public works package.
Nope, I was just gonna turn
I
it off.
thought maybe you were gonna say something on top of that.
You have a question, or?
Nope.
Okay. I was wondering, Utility Commission's gonna start looking at, what capital projects need to come in the future. Is there something under Wheeled Bridge that may fall in that, or like a reason why it might need to be torn up again within that lifetime?
Nope, in that infrastructure world, we're still a baby. There will be piecemeal things in other areas, but the water main on Taylor is really it. That stuff, you expect 80 to 100 years out of, so most of the village was built from 1990 on, so we're in good shape there.
Yeah, capacity-wise there too, you should be fine as part of those projects. That's a good question, though, to think through that piece of it.
And Utility Commission in that same area doesn't impact the streets per se, but there's a major regional lift station that's needed out there in the future if we're going to consider other development.
Yeah, that's one of the decisions on Public Works going into, Ridge Road, as we're thinking through that a little bit, is like, we could widen it and make it this grand roadway, but if developers are gonna come in on either side, the interest is there, what are they gonna want? What could maybe we require them to do as part of that urbanization? So it is kind of a put back to some degree with a much improvement to the pavement, which is needed.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve the bid for Hamburg for base plus alternative 2.
Second.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Melissa. Any further discussion? Having heard none then, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. All right, I'm not going to move around anymore, guys. Next up.
John, I just have one finishing comment.
Don't make me move on the agenda, please.
No, we won't have to
I
move.
can't do this to these people anymore.
We won't have to move on the agenda.
Or Lisa.
The awarding these bids, and Josh had mentioned previously the Clark and Grove Street. We also have some parks projects that will be, their bids will be finalized in 2 or 3 weeks. At least they'll be due in, reviewed at at Parks and Rec Committee, and then that'll need to come to the board the first meeting in June. Once we have all the projects compiled, all the bids compiled, then we'll come with Ellers for the financing. I had mentioned that potentially being done sooner, but just to avoid any opportunity of needing to borrow twice if a bid comes in off, our cash flow can carry some of these projects that will start ahead of receiving the borrowing, so we'll draw down certain funds and then reimburse ourselves with the borrowing at a later date. So the timeline would be end of June, Ellers would come to get authorization from the board to go out for a bond issue, and then the second meeting in July would be the bond sale. So.
Okay.
Would you also have the solar as part of that too? Would that be included in there?
Yes, the solar for the municipal services building is part of it too.
Yeah, we'll have costs about that same time.
All right. Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Josh. All right, item C then is no mow May. First up there is discuss and consider adopting a no mow May proclamation, which is in our packets. I don't know if anyone wants to comment on that, but Melissa does.
Or Heidi.
Or Heidi.
Heidi.
Sure, I'll start us off and Melissa can add on. I took a proclamation that was an example from, I believe, Shorewood Hills that they shared with municipalities in Dane County and kind of tried to make it our own. We do have high potential zone for the rusty patched bumblebee, which is federally endangered, and it's kind of the more south portion of the village that is a high potential zone for that type of bee. And they shared their language and welcomed other communities to utilize that. But I kind of added in some additional pieces about recognizing, providing critical habitat for pollinators, so helping to protect them would include various activities that homeowners could do in their own properties, including no-mow May, and then in addition, a variety of native plants that bloom across seasons, leave the leaves in the fall, and refraining from use of lawn or plant pesticides and herbicides that harm or kill pollinators. So I added in multiple different ways that homeowners could participate in supporting pollinators.
Any questions or comments?
I want to thank Heidi for putting this together, and as I noted at the previous board meeting, it's more about raising awareness to this issue. With No Mow May, it's a start in our community to show that this is one thing that you can do, and we can build on it and have pollinator gardens or other types of plants in your garden to help promote bee growth or bees in your community, in your garden. And so that's why I'm supportive of this proclamation. And other communities throughout Dane County have been adopting it as well. I think it's a great start for Dane County and especially for our community. So I would make a motion to adopt the No Mow May proclamation.
Was there a second? Second. Thank you, Melissa. Thank you, Sarah. Any further discussion? Having heard none then, all those in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. Next then, I think, plugging right with this would be discuss and consider amending Chapter 224 of the Village Code to allow suspension of grass heights requirements.
Yeah, so just real quick, this is based on the conversation we had at the last board meeting regarding some trustees wanting to be able to suspend the ordinance for No Mow May. So basically, what we would do is this ordinance allows you just to temporarily suspend the application of the height requirement for grass. The other restrictions regarding invasive species would still need to be applied, so JJ, our weed commissioner, would still be on the hook for that. So basically, it just gives you guys discretion to suspend the ordinance if you so choose.
Any questions for Rick on this piece?
I just had one as far as when do we make JJ the weed commissioner? Did we miss that this year yet?
I think Larry said it was in perpetuity.
I believe you did.
Yeah, it was looked into. There's actually no reason, other than if we want to, there's no reason to annually renew it. But I'm guessing JJ may have a soon-to-be new staff person that you might want to assign that to, so there might be a future appointment. But we were giving him a hard time that he's locked in regardless. So.
Rick, I did have a question. The way you worded this ordinance, it says may temporarily suspend, but not limited ecological preservation. Does that mean every year we have to renew this grass height requirement, or we can suspend it every year? We can't. I guess we could. I know we're going to talk about the next agenda item, but I'm just curious. Like, I'm just thinking 10 years down the road, right? Like, what if none of us are here anymore and somebody else, like, they have to remember every year to renew this?
That's correct. It would not be a reoccurring item. Okay. So you would make so assuming this is passed, you would make your motion to temporarily suspend it for a period of time. After that time elapses, the ordinance goes back into effect.
Okay. Is it, did you do any research, like, are are other municipalities codifying this so they just say in May it's suspended, or are they generally going this route to? In my day job, I have a habit of running into problems where I forget to do things on a certain date, and, you know, sometimes I forget my kid's birthday, sometimes I forget what day it is, right? So I'm just saying, right, like, I just know how humans work, right? So there's a hesitation for me, like, I'm like, is there some way we could put May in there, or do you not recommend doing that?
So, I don't know if I'd have a recommendation either way. It's really a policy decision for the board to make, whether they want to make this a permanent item or just have it at the discretion of the board for when it actually gets applied. So if that's something the board wants to do, we could certainly change the language easily. So it's every May 1st through May 31st.
I guess I'm just curious from the rest of the folks on the board, like, if we're gonna, I mean, do we just want to keep up with the Joneses and make it just this year, and then someone has to remember every year, or at least has to put it on their calendar? Or somebody has to put it on their calendar? I'm just trying to think, like.
I guess I would look at this as if it's something that is gonna continue and recur, which likely it is, that we then change the ordinance. But at this point now, it's May, we can't change this ordinance tonight. We suspend it for this
Sure.
year, see how it goes, which I'm assuming will go well and popularity increase, then you change the ordinance, you know, after that. And that's would be my suggestion.
That's what I was thinking as well. See how it goes first, and then, I mean, the one thing is maybe it needs to be like no mow May, but it actually starts April 15th to May 15th. Who knows with climate change?
And I'm totally on board, right? Like, because you can't change that tonight, but I'm just thinking longer term, right? If you're gonna do it, let's do it, right? Rather than having to, like, to me, if you just say whenever you decide to, it just feels like like we didn't go all the way, right? Like, you might as well commit yourself and just say, okay, moving forward. And again, we don't have to do it for this year, but, you know, moving forward, if we're gonna do it every May, let's do it every May.
And I would wonder if we wouldn't want to limit ourselves to May in the ordinance, because going forward, it might be, are there other ecological reasons we would want to suspend mowing, or would that pin us into something if we were to have our ordinance be specific to May?
Well, we can certainly have discretion, so it applies, you know, in the month of May plus whenever the board decides at other times. So really, this would be a good trial run, and we can all set a reminder for the end of May and revisit this.
Yeah, I think there's a Google calendar or something.
Put your kids' birthdays on there too, please.
More often, I just forget what day it is.
All right, any other questions regarding this, or in this case, it's a consideration for motion?
I'll move to amend Chapter 224 of the Village Code to allow suspension of grass height requirements.
Second.
All right, thank you, Melissa, thank you, David. Any further discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Any abstain? Motion carries. Next up is discuss and consider suspending grass height requirements. I think we just kind of did that, didn't we?
I will move to suspend grass height requirements.
Is there a second? And then I'll let you.
I would say the motion should include the time period, so,
Till May 31st, 2022.
so effective immediately till May
Yes.
31st.
Yes.
All right.
Yes, that's my motion.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Heidi. Thank you, Melissa. Any further discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. Now we just need some warm weather so stuff will grow. Next up, we have new business. Item B, discuss and consider resolution 2022-04 and 2022-05. And this is appreciation of service for Troy Allen and Paul Vanderbilt for their recent work on the board. I know Heidi brought this up, and so if there's anything you want to cover on the resolution, or?
Well, I'm sure Paul and Troy are right on the Zoom watching us on their first night off. No. We all know how much time and dedication and commitment to our community it takes to serve on the village board, so I wanted to take this and formally recognize Troy and Paul for their service to the village and our community. And with that, I will make a motion to approve resolutions 2022-4 and 2022-5 in appreciation of service for Troy Allen and Paul Vandervelde.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, thank you, Heidi. Thank you, Melissa. Any further discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Any abstain? Motion carries. We'll make them bring donuts and come back sometime. How's that? Next up, discuss and consider a scheduled appointment of agent for Quick Trip. We can do Lisa on this one.
So this is just an agent change for one of the Quick Trips. Their agent is leaving, going to a different area, so they're just bringing in a new one. So just a simple form that has to be approved by the village board. The background check was done by the PD and approved.
All right. Any questions on this, board members? All right, consideration then for motion?
I'll move to approve the appointment of the agent for Quick Trip.
All right. Thank you, Melissa. Thank you, David. A motion second. Any further discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. Next, we have discuss and consider host permit for new tech painting. I don't know if anybody is on for new tech. I don't think so.
So this is our new host permit that we
Yes.
have for hosting food trucks?
Yes,
Yeah, so for food trucks.
yes.
I didn't see any dates in the form, unless I missed that, and I apologize.
No, there's no dates.
I think it was just sporadically when they can get somebody to come in.
Now, is this for lunches for staff, or this is something else?
I think it's probably both for staff and community.
Okay. All right, any
Lisa,
questions?
just random question. Why is his property tax bill in the packet?
Because they have to prove residency, and that's what he provided.
Okay. With that, I'll approve the host permit for new tech painting.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Melissa. Any further discussion?
I just had a question. So he's just having a food truck randomly for events?
Yeah, Lisa just said that he doesn't know when he can get the trucks there for both staff and, community. Hopefully, I'm assuming they'll get it out in social media when they are going to have someone there so that we can, whoever's in the area. I'm sure there'll be some hungry construction workers across the road there that might want to partake, but for the rest of us that may not do that, it would be nice to be aware of that. There's some really good food trucks around these days.
I think he may have one there on Wednesday if this is approved, which obviously looks like it, so I'm sure
Okay.
he'll have more things posted, but I can relay that message to him.
Yep,
Maybe,
okay.
maybe Mondays before board meetings?
All right, motion and second then. Any further discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. Next up, reports from village boards, commissions, and committees. Library board, Melissa.
So J.J. did the minutes and sent them, and I was like, oh, good, now I don't have to call on you. And I printed them, and now I don't know what I did with them.
There really wasn't too much besides Tracy from South Central Library came, and basically the library board kind of picked her brain on next steps, but then more, it seemed to be more the services they could offer once the library's up and running would be the most value there. But it was mostly a meeting of asking her questions.
That's right, thank you.
Yep.
Sorry to call again. But thank you. That, I mean, it was, now you refreshed my memory that it was, just her telling a lot about what we can look forward to when we get to that point.
Okay, all right. Any questions there? Otherwise, we'll move right on. We covered most of the things in Deer Grove Commission, but Sarah, is there anything we missed?
I just wanted to make sure that folks on the board knew that we did approve new billing rates. So in the past, we had a resident rate and a non-resident rate. And the resident rate was less than the non-resident rate. But we have, based on feedback from the billing company that we use and other municipalities, decided to go with one flat rate regardless of residency. So I just wanted to make sure you folks knew that. That's it.
All right. Any questions there? All right, then we'll move on to Law Enforcement Committee. Not a lot there. We did talk about, a little bit about, before tabling, this whole Delta 8, in this case, a lieutenant, I don't know if he's on, or chief. I don't know if either of them are. Oh, there's Lieutenant Wagner. Keep me honest, Matt. Matt went into a little more details than I will, but essentially, this is becoming more and more of an issue, and the Delta 8 they're referring to, THC, is from marijuana, is what they're looking at. The committee felt like we need more information, particularly from legal. I know I actually spoke to Larry a little bit about this as well. There is quite a bit more information to be had, and I know that Lieutenant also had some of the information, but was kind of drinking on the fire hose real quick before Chief unfortunately couldn't join us as well. So we'll have a discussion next month with hopefully a bit more information. I know the committee members were also going to do a little bit of digging on their own. I found some information from the FDA, for instance, regarding this. It's a challenge for our officers, but it's also kind of a legal gray area in a lot of respects as well. So that's kind of where we're at. But I don't know, Lieutenant, if you want to add more to that, if you want to pipe in.
Nope, that was a good synopsis, John. Like I said, it's just something that we're looking into, and we'll bring the committee more information next month.
And just as a side note, unfortunately, this has touched a couple folks in the community already with overdoses. The police were able to kind of trace it back to Delta 8. So it is a problem statewide, nationwide, and right here in our own community. So more to come on that. Other than that, we covered our normal things around activity. The nice thing to note was the new officers are progressing nicely along. The 2 officers are now in the field, or nearly. One of them is in the field, one of them nearly is in the field, according to we met on the 26th. And then the other officer going through the Quebec Academy is progressed through a number of the hoops that they're put forth there, and hopefully will be joining us soon. We also talked about the license plate readers. We now have 3 of them moving along. Our pilot has moved into actual permanent, and we've placed them where we think the best place they will make a difference, and continue to look at that in the future if we think the department needs more of them. They are proving successful from that perspective. And touched a little bit SRO, safety resource officer continues to stay busy there, and in the schools. Anything else I missed? Or Lieutenant? I looked at Sarah, now I'm looking at the screen and seeing if you have anything else I missed.
No, sir. That was a good synopsis.
No, I guess I missed one thing. Fireman's Festival, Lieutenant and Chief and the rest of the officers are getting ready for that. We're hoping that we'll have lots of sunshine and warmer weather, and another successful Fireman's Festival. All right, with that then, if nobody has a question. Go ahead. Yeah.
Thanks, John. I was just wondering, as far as with the Delta 9 as far as if there have been some overdoses or harmful effects, how will prohibiting possession of them prevent the overdosing or the harmful effects of them?
I will leave that to Lieutenant. I have an idea, but I'll let the professional answer that one.
Melissa's microphone was cutting in and out, so I actually didn't get her question.
I was just wondering, as far as, this is when I wish I was in a courtroom when someone was typing out what I asked, so I could say, can you repeat that for me? Just as far as with Delta 8 THC or Delta 9 THC causing harmful effects to people who may take them, how does prohibiting them from possessing them prevent them from having the harmful situation happen to them?
Well, I guess the easiest way to answer that is Delta 9 and Delta 8 in the state of Wisconsin are still illegal. So that's kind of what we're working off of as of right now.
Okay. And do other communities, like, have they looked at this as well, or?
Yeah, I mean, this is, it's slowly but surely, getting into our area. Again, like I stressed in the LEC committee meeting, the main thing I wanted everyone to know was that this is only Delta 8 that's derivative of marijuana itself. It has nothing to do with, because Delta 8 can also come from hemp production, and the 2018 Farm Bill protects all that. So we just want to make sure that we're not crossing those boundaries, and that's kind of where John says we're kind of in a gray area right now of trying to figure out what we can do and what we can't do. And we don't, like I said, we don't want to blaze new paths here. We're just trying to make sure that our ordinances are following within what the board wants, and then also following what the state law says.
It's more to do with the way our ordinance is phrased too, so that's where we want to seek out legal counsel on this.
Okay.
And then, educate everyone once we do have the clarity.
Great. Thank you.
Next up, Matt, don't go away. Emergency Preparedness Committee. He thought he was done.
Yeah, we met. We are going through our annual revision of our emergency preparedness plan. Chief Lang gave me some updates last week that I'll be adding to our plan. We've made a few other updates when it comes to, for an example, Landmark has changed their business name, so we're updating their name in the plan. We're also just updating some phone numbers and everything else. So that's on an annual basis, so we'll be working on that. We were granted we received another $2,000 donation from Hydrite, which we will hopefully be putting into use coming this fall, where we'll be having a tabletop exercise with the Emergency Government Committee, also inviting all the department heads, fire EMS, and then also the town of Cottage Grove emergency government. So things that are coming down the pike for us, we're moving forward, and we want to get those exercises in place so we can be prepared if we ever have to deal with an emergency like that.
All right, thanks, Matt. Any questions for Matt on emergency preparedness? Any other comments, Melissa, since you and I were there? Okay. All right, I think next meeting is slated in June to get back together. Joint Fire Committee. I don't know how much more we need to cover there, but David or Melissa, anything else?
Yeah, so we talked about.
Yeah, there's plenty to talk about, that's right.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's all good.
Oh, my mind forgot.
No worries. So we have a new engine coming. So we discussed selling engine 3. A lot of conversation around reserve, no reserve price, that sort of thing. We ultimately decided to put it on Wisconsin surplus. So that should be going up soon. We're gonna wait until we get the new engine to put it up, just so we're clear. We were able to get a bottle fill station. We did have to approve some hardware that needs to be added. I think it's about $6,000 if I recall.
We didn't approve it. It was
That's right, we
just an
didn't approve it.
estimate.
Thank you. It was just an estimate for a bottle fill. I just got so excited about the bottle fill. Because that was something I was really, after talking with the fire department, that's something that's very important, because currently they can only fill 2 bottles, and that's on the squad, and the squad is slated for replacement. And if the squad is out of commission, then they have to go all the way to Stoughton to fill the bottles. Not that that's that far, but again, it's an important thing for the fire department to have filled O2 bottles. Then we talked about the east parking lot. There's a piece of concrete we're gonna have removed. Snyder's gonna come and take that out. Then we talked about extrication equipment. They're actually, and I learned something at this meeting, so a lot of the jaws of life are transitioning from gas power to electric. And the electric is better, faster, more efficient in a lot of ways. And so as part of Fireman's Fest this year, the Cottage Grove Fire Department, Inc. is raising funds to purchase an electric Jaws of Life that will replace an older gas-powered Jaws of Life. And there was a conversation around, should we donate it, should we sell it, what should we do? Because according to Assistant Chief April, a lot of departments in the state, especially rural fire departments, don't have any Jaws of Life. So we decided to list the Jaws on, when the time comes right, to list it on the website and with no reserve. So it probably should go pretty quick for little money. So that'll go a long way to help another fire department. We did talk about PAA's recommendations. Essentially, we approved the mission, vision, values statement. That was an interesting exercise, but we did accomplish that. And then we did talk about the measures of success, or KPIs, whatever you want to call them. We were able to get through those. Really, the goals is really what I guess what we can call those. We talked about how the next item in the consolidated fire agreement, we then referred back to PAA's recommendations to discuss. Next will be the budget formula, and that'll be at next month's meeting. And we set a meeting, and then we adjourned. Did I miss anything?
Sounds like a very productive meeting. Glad to hear it.
Yeah.
Any questions from board members? All right, we'll move right to reports from village officers, starting off with legal.
I have nothing to report.
Even better. All right, and then we have a whole list. It's the time of year we kind of move things around. We've got both Brittany and Chris joining us as trustees. I had a request to move a couple other things around, so I'm hopefully accommodating, as well as a reappointment on CDA and step away from plan, so a new member proposed there for a citizen member, who everybody should know, hopefully. So with that, I'm just, I don't know how you guys want to handle these, but I think Melissa's got asked to step away from a couple because of some busy things going on with her, and then made some suggestions there, which I totally agree with David and Heidi, both on plan and library board. I think they'll be great additions. With that, then Heidi and I talked about it. Utilities gets a little tight on, you know, that right before plans. So Chris just asked both Brittany and Chris volunteered to step into that one. So that's kind of the move arounds there. We do still have some open spots, and I'll send out a note to everybody. The budget committee, again, meets a handful of times in the late summer, early to late summer, depending on what all's going on there, to kind of look at the budget and help get prepared for the budget workshop. As the housing task force wraps up, there's a spot there that Paul vacated. Tourism has a spot, and we have an AdVig alternative spot too for that. So I'll send a note out to everybody, and you can get back to me. First come, first serve, I think. Or we'll do rock, paper, scissors, or flip a coin or something if we got more than one. So any questions or comments on that?
I was wondering if you have any citizen openings on committees also, or you're not sure about those?
Yes, there are 2 on CDA, and reaching out to, I know that you said that a couple of the folks on ordinance were open, and again, it'll depend on if they're available in that timeframe. I did check with Aaron to make sure we didn't have requirements on those spots, and we don't, so I'll be reaching out to those folks after this. And then I think there's a couple other spots, but these are the ones that are coming up and the ones we seem to have the most activity on.
Yeah, you read my mind on the ordinance. That's exactly what I was thinking of.
Can we approve these in mass, or do we have to do them one at a time?
We have been proving them in mass, but you guys can decide.
I just wanted to, put a plug in for the landfill monitoring committee, if anybody wants to be the alternate on that, it's a lot of fun. And a very short time commitment,
Yeah.
every other month. I'll make a motion to approve all the nominations from 9B1 to 7.
Is there a second? Second. All right, thank you. Well, then, Sarah, any further discussion? Having heard none then, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. Next up, we have Village Administrator Matt, please.
Oh, sure. Just a couple items here. First one, discuss and consider approval of Village Hall summer office hours. I talked with President Williams a little bit about this, and technically it doesn't need board approval, but I figured it was worthwhile to come to you all for endorsements of this. Essentially, we have one hourly employee at Village Hall that's primarily responsible for all of our customer service, and we thought, like, especially during COVID and everything like that, and this would be a nice way to add some flexibility without costing the village anything. Same hours would be put in, would just be put in during earlier in the week and close a little bit early on Fridays between Memorial Day and Labor Day.
And that's just here, not MSB also?
Correct. There's certainly, they could come forward with something if it worked for them, but we were just focused at Village Hall.
Okay.
Lisa, how busy is it the last 2.5 hours on a Friday in December? I just had to ask.
If it's a nice day, not very busy.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I'll make a motion to approve the Village Hall summer office hours as written.
Is there a second? Second. Thanks, David. Thanks, Sarah. Any further discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor then? Aye. Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. And then next up, Matt, you have another one here.
Yes, discuss and consider scheduling a special village board meeting for the purposes of meeting with our architects to do tours of our facilities. We heard from the architects during fall on the facility study that was done, and this is just the next step in learning more, and leads into, village the board prioritization process and financial management plan and all of that. So there are 2 dates, generally the last week and early in the month can work out quite well, May 31st or June 1st. I don't believe there's any current village board meetings, and we would look to start at 5:30. But certainly open for any scheduling considerations you all have.
Anybody have any concerns with either date, or one date works better?
May 31st works
Yep.
best for me.
Same.
First I have something else.
Anybody have a problem with May 31st? All right, May 31st would be wonderful then. I don't,
Yes, we would,
Start here.
our plan is to start here. There would be a brief 10 to 15-minute presentation, refresher in this room. We'd do a quick tour of this facility and then move to the other facilities, and we'd work with legal on how best to post that. We'd be posting all the locations and approximate time that we would get there. Yeah, so we have to work through some of the logistics, but this would be the first. It wouldn't be offered hybrid. Just be difficult to do that. So that would be the only difference than how we've been previously doing things.
3 of us can have phones and we scan the area.
We did talk. Yeah, we did joke. Maybe we'll get a GoPro for JJ to carry around.
Oh, that would be great. That'd be even better. All right, this is a discuss and consider, so I don't know if anybody wants to make a motion on the 31st.
I'll move approval of a special village board meeting on May 31st at 5:30 PM, starting at Village Hall.
All right. Thanks, Heidi. Thanks, Melissa. Any further discussion? Having heard none then, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. Next up is communication, Melissa's business. And first up is approval of vouchers. Any questions about the vouchers as presented? From anyone?
I'll make a motion to approve the vouchers as written.
All right, thank you, David. Is there a second? Second. Thank you, Sarah. Any further discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. Correspondence. I did have a rather disturbing email from down on the 300 block of Main Street this morning, sent to myself, which I passed along to both Lieutenant and Chief, as well as Matt. A near miss, and somebody caught on their nests. Bus was stopped at.
I was there.
You were there?
I was there, I saw it.
Okay. Well, the nest captured it pretty intensely. This is a location that we're doing some work on, both the PD and JJ, on collecting information about speeding. This was a case where someone stopped quick for the bus. They should have stopped much sooner, and a large dump truck had to swerve out of the way.
Full dump truck.
Full dump truck, and the kids were standing on the sidewalk. So we'll continue to work in this area as well as other areas. It's a concern that the police department has, and I think all of us have, and certainly all parents. So I just ask people to please slow down. If you're driving slow, as I've been claimed to be as a grandpa driver sometimes by those in the vehicle with me, those behind you will drive slow. And so I reverse the 80-20 rule, and if 20% of us do this, we'll probably slow down most of the traffic. We'll continue working in that area. I knew Lieutenant and Chief have other ideas, so did JJ. This case, just fortunate there wasn't anything else that occurred beyond just that. So I do have that correspondence to just pass along to everybody. Anybody else have anything that they want to share? Or, oh, I'm sorry, I have one more. I had a request for fire chief to do a nomination for Fire Chief of the Year through an association, and was pleased to do that. We were able to get that in on the deadline. I think everything kind of piled all together, but Chief reached out to me over the weekend. We got that sorted with the Fire Association, so that was very nice, and hopefully he is recognized for all the work that he's done. The letter that the volunteer firefighters put together was very complimentary in a lot of different ways, and certainly we have had a lot of interactions with Chief as well, so just wanted to let you know that too. With that, unless anybody else has any correspondence, we'll move right to upcoming community events as the weather warms.
There's the Shady Grove neighborhood grand opening, their model home. You don't hear that too often with new neighborhoods, so it's kind of a cool thing. Opening up that new neighborhood, so everyone's welcome to that. It's 4:30 to 7 o'clock with a ribbon cutting at 5:30, and that's at 3190 Drumlin Ridge Drive.
The house that's furthest along, I think.
That's on,
Right, yeah, you can't miss it.
Yeah, it stands out.
Sod
Yeah.
that's on Wednesday?
Wednesday, yes, on the 4th. 4:30, right, begins? I think I read that right earlier. And then 5:30 is the ribbon cutting. Go ahead.
So when is that Dolphin Swim Academy gonna open?
Oh,
Yeah, we don't know. Our HVAC is not being cooperative, so we only have half of our system. So hopefully in a month. Supposed to be today, but clearly not there yet.
We got that to look forward
Yeah.
to then.
We do.
There's also a ribbon cutting at Monona Grove High School on May 21st for their solar panel system installation on the high school, which I think is pretty exciting for those of us that live in that school district.
and I don't think anybody surpassed that, but that should be the largest install of a solar array on a high school in the state, I believe. Somebody's gonna leapfrog it, but, which I hope they do, actually. But Monona Grove High School. So, that-
There's also a Lions Care Car Cruise and Poker Run on May 14th. It benefits, the proceeds go to help their Badger Childhood Cancer Network. And it starts at there's at 7:30 a.m. on Saturday, May 14th, at community, there's community Paul Bunny breakfast, and it's, that's somewhere in Cottage Grove, Pocket Park.
yeah. And I should have called that one out. Thank you, Melissa. Also, just a quick note on, I had an opportunity to meet with the Boy Scouts last Monday, because they were asking about, some of them have a badge for citizenship, and they need, one of the things they need to do was talk to someone locally that was an elected official, so that was really nice to talk to about a dozen young men and that who are serving their community right now, and I encourage them to continue to do that as they get older, because a number of them actually are going to be, I think when he said grading out or something, that, I mean, they just get too old to be in the Scouts anymore. So they'll be equipped with certainly a lot more availability to serve whatever they do within the communities they end up in. So that was really cool to do that, be asked to do that. Future agenda items, Matt, anything that we have to be on our radar? I don't think so. We'll have plan commission items, a few there, but that I can think of right off the top of my head, but something will certainly pop up. If nobody has anything else, and I'll pause, then we'll move into item 11. I would like to make a motion that the village board goes into closed session to establish a negotiating position regarding the Deer Grove EMS district and joint fire agreements. The Village of Cottage Grove Village Board will enter a closed session pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute 19.85, parentheses 1, parentheses E, deliberating and negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or the conducting of other specified public business wherever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. Lisa, roll call, please. I'm sorry, do I need a second first?
Second.
Thank you, David. Now we'll do a roll call.
Okay. Williams,
Aye.
Ballwood. Aye. Murphy,
Hi.
Peterson,
Aye.
Valencia, Stoa, and Ragland.